All right, let's see how this goes, but I'm going to do, it'll probably end up being a couple of part series. I want to take you through what I've done to the S2000. So all the different modifications. I'm going to talk about pros and cons. I'm going to talk about follies and successes. I'm going to talk about all the different details. I just finished up tuning the audio system, time aligning it, making sure the EQ was set up properly, and then tuning it to my ear so that it sounds good to me. I'm not an expert tuner, but I know enough to be dangerous. So I spent some time setting up the amplifier, getting the head unit, the Pioneer DEH 80, what is it, 80 PS? DEH 80 PRS has a fully integrated DSP inside of it, so I can time align, I can full parametric EQ, and so I can do all of my active connections, my speakers from the amplifier through the head unit. So that that saves me a lot of extra wiring, and that way I didn't have to do a Moscone or audio control or some sort of external DSP like I did in my previous GT3. So anyway, I'm going to take you through step by step all the different processes, all the different things that we did to the car, and I think I'm going to break the car up by section, so we'll kind of see how long-winded I get on all this, but I'll share you my findings. I think this might be useful to other S2000 owners. I have lots of years of dealing with these cars, but I left the cars for several years, and so lots of stuff has come out since then. Several people have made comments, sent me private messages, connected with me on S2KI to say, hey, I think you might want to check this out. So credit to those guys like Steve, who has lots of S2000s. He turned me on to the Origin Fab spacers, and we talked about roll center adjusters and stuff like that. Stuff that I've never done to a car before, and so I'm going to talk you through all those different specifics. And I'm going to go back, rather than committing this all to memory. I probably won't need to refer to this often, but I did make a Word document just sort of listing out all the different products that I did. And I'll talk about price, but it's going to take a little longer. I kept all the receipts, but they're all dug in with all the Obsessed Garage stuff. Shoot, I mean, I'm buying $100 and something thousand a month in stuff, and the S2000 is owned by Obsessed Garage. It's built into buying foam cannons and T-shirts and UPS and all the different orders that come through. So tracking the transactions, my poor bookkeeper. Luckily, we have this largely automated. I went and thought I could just sort of pull up all the receipts to all this stuff, but it's going to take me a few hours to dig through all the noise to figure out what I paid for all this stuff. But I do think that'll be interesting. To me, I've always been upfront about this stuff. Money, cost of things is just a fact. It's just a simple number. And so if I paid $6,000 for a Kraftwerks supercharger, that's just what it cost. I mean, you can go look it up. So I don't know why I have to be so secretive about it. I'm not going to be secretive about it. I'm going to tell you the truth. So let's get rolling on the project. So let's first. Just so that I don't get yelled at as much, let's talk suspension first. So let's go over to the car, I'll pop the hood, and we'll kind of talk, and I'll point at some things, and we'll kind of go through the process of sharing. If I start with the audio system, people are going to lose their minds. All right, so let's talk suspension, and then we'll come back and talk about supercharger and underhood and stuff like that. So the first thing you'll notice is I don't have a strut tower brace. I think Cusco makes one. So I've been torn on this because you really can't do a brake master cylinder brace and a strut tower brace combined with the fact that the Kraftwerks kind of sticks up. And so we don't have a lot of space. I don't have a lot of room for a strut tower brace. But I really like the way they look. I think Cusco makes one that fits above the Kraftwerks intake here on the intake manifold. But anyway, I don't have one. I just test fitted the J's again last night just to see if I could somehow space it out and make it work, but it just doesn't fit. And so I have the LHT brake master cylinder on. So front suspension is comprised of Eibach front sway bar. So let's get in a little closer here, see if we can kind of show some of this stuff. So you'll notice Eibach front sway bar. So it takes, I think the stock is 26 or 28 millimeters. So this makes it a 32 millimeter front sway bar. No rear sway bar, just a front sway bar. You know, these tend to be pretty tail happy cars, and so you want to dial in a little stiffer front sway bar, especially since I'm putting, you know, bigger meat in the front. And so that's a pretty common modification, to leave the rear sway bar and then upgrade the front. And so there's the brake master cylinder brace that I'm talking about from LHT. So notice it's just a, you know, a bar or a, you know, a piece of I guess this would be anodized aluminum, might be Delrin, that's cut, and then we have a, you know, just a little post here, a threaded post that then locks the brake master cylinder in place, because the master cylinder, when you come under hard braking, it wants to come this way, and so that holds it in place. You get a little better pedal feel. So, you know, the very first modifications that I knew that I would do is the Ohlin's DFV. So notice here we have our compression rebound adjustment up top here, so we can adjust the suspension. I think I don't know what setting I have it on specifically, but I haven't really messed with it much. We've set it at whatever the factory setting was. And you've seen me fumble through setting up the suspension, in that setting up the height took me quite a bit of time to get the ride height set up the way I wanted to. You know, I wanted it low, but not so low that, you know, it looked funny. And so the lessons learned on the suspension, you know, first, I'd never encountered a lesser expensive sleeved body, you know, where generally the shocks that I've been accustomed to have been unibody, or these will have a cup, and then to adjust ride height, you move the body of the shock in the cup. And so I'd messed with, in one of my very first videos of adjusting the suspension, I actually ended up affecting the, you know, the preload of the suspension, which again really isn't going to affect all that much. I mean, what are the chances I'm going to reach full droop, you know, where the suspension is fully extended? So a lot of times there are some manufacturers that actually recommend that you adjust the preload even on a multi-bodied or a, you know, cup-driven shock. Like my GT3 RS is going to have a unibody shock where the height and preload are adjusted in the same, you know, in the same fashion. So anyway, we also in the front suspension I have the Origin Fab. They end up being 7 millimeter offset A-arm offset spacers. So what it does is the A-arm is an arm that goes up on top, so the upper control arm, which then goes back and connects to the frame of the car, right? And so there are bushings, or there are, you know, they're urethane bushings that are centered, and so the A-arm grabs it in the center. Whereas what the Origin Fab does is make it grab toward, you can adjust it so that it grabs towards the back. So basically pulls the upper arm in by 7 millimeters. And so that's what allows me to, without running crazy camber, it allows me to pull the front of the suspension in so I can stay flush with these plus 50 millimeter wheels, right? I hope that makes sense. The other thing that we have is the roll center adjuster, which I'm not particularly gifted at explaining what a roll center adjuster is. But when you lower the car, the suspension geometry is off, and so it helps offset the suspension so that the wheels and tires are placed properly or sit properly with the proper camber.
Can we go to Sakura's for Mommy's birthday tonight?
You want to go to Sakura's? Yeah, we can. You want to?
Yeah.
Okay, let's do it. Let me finish this video. So the roll center adjusters, you can look it up, RCA, a lot of people abbreviate them. Lesson learned on the roll center adjuster is, you know, they're basically what happens is it's the, shoot, I should have done my research before talking to you about this. In my head I understand it, but vocally I'm having a hard time articulating what it actually does. Anyway, you guys can look it up, and maybe I'm sure some of you guys will explain it in the comments. But the roll center adjuster we had in backwards, and if you ever look at one, the picture of them, it's very easy to put it in backwards. What happened was when we did the brakes, then we realized that the roll center adjuster was backwards. So these larger diameter rotors, 328 millimeter rotors, are significantly bigger than stock. Plus they're offset, so they sit inside. So you have to actually remove the dust guard, or the brake dust guard that goes on the back of the rotor. So you have to remove that, and then this essentially sits back a little further. And so because the roll center adjuster was offset backward, we were getting contact on the end of the lower control arm with the rotor. And so this is the one project I have left. I'm probably gonna have to ditch these rotors and have to get new ones because now they're warped. Because in testing we're trying to figure out how to make it not connect, and so we notch the inner side of the rotor and just sort of marred the surface of it, and then I had the back of them resurfaced, and then when we bedded the brakes it probably warped them, so they're warped pretty. Not terribly, but enough to annoy me. So I don't know how much these Stoptech rotors cost, but I'm gonna have to fix that. So roll center adjuster, make sure you put those in correctly if you ever do those. There's not a lot of information on them on S2KI or online. There is a video where somebody shows how to mount them properly. And basically the holes are offset to the inside or outside. You just need to make sure that you have the holes in the right spot because they fit in both ways. And so you can easily mistakenly put it in incorrectly. And there's, again, there's very little information about how to and what they, how you would install them. So make sure you do that correctly. So we ended up shaving the control arms, and I ended up having to throw the control arms away because we had shaved too much of them, and I decided let's just do, once we figured out the roll center adjusters were backwards, I did all new control arms, so the lower control arms cost me what? They're the same on the CR as they are on the regular, they're like $700 a set or something like that for OE version. And then here we have Ohlin's DFV set up in, and I bought those from Urge Designs. I didn't buy any custom spring rates or anything, I just wanted the streetable version. So they're the stock spring rates that come with the DFVs. Preload set properly, height set properly. I have a little less than a finger gap here. You could slam this pretty well, you could probably come down another half an inch with the plus 50 millimeter offset wheels, but I didn't want to do that. So then we have stainless lines, Stoptech 4-piston trophy kit with the Stoptech trophy 320 millimeter slotted rotors, and then I have the Stoptech street pads, which seem pretty good. They don't make a lot of noise. They seem to be making a medium amount of dust. After we figured out the roll center adjuster issue, they're great. This freaking car will rip your face off as you're under braking the way it's set up now, with cup twos and the brakes. So again, front suspension completely dialed in with the Eibach front 32 millimeter sway bar. The other thing that this has that I did is I did spoon rigid collars. There's the subframe, right? There's a subframe, and then there's the frame, and so the subframe is how you. So what happens is there's a bolt that comes up through the subframe, and there's some play in that. And so what the spoon rigid collar does is goes in between. It fits down into the subframe and then up into the regular frame with a hat. And so as you're running the thread up through the subframe and then through the regular frame, the rigid collars help ensure that the subframe can't shift side to side. You do it both in the rear subframe and the front subframe. So that'll help make sure that your alignment's not an issue. You won't have shimmying when you're driving down the highway. That was a major issue I had with my AP2 that no one knew how to fix. It's because when your subframe gets out of alignment, then your toe is off and you can get a shimmy when you're driving down the road. So the most noticeable thing here in the front is I have a square setup, and the reason why I did square was so that I could fit the brakes. And these have plenty of clearance. These are Evasive Motorsports ordered. They order these like 100 at a time. This is not a size that Volk makes. Volk's standard offset is very different than I think they're plus 52 and plus 63 in the rear. And then they're a much narrower wheel. These are 17 by 9.5 and a plus 50 millimeter offset. And so with combination of the origin fab, the control arm offset spacers, or offset bushings I should call them, the roll center adjuster. I have -2.5 degrees of camber up front, absolutely no rubbing. Again, I have a 1/2 finger gap, and then I have 255, 40, 17 cup 2s front and rear. And so I'm able to squeeze this much meat on the front end of the car and have it not poking out and looking goofy. I hate that. I also didn't have to roll or pull the fenders. I have stock fenders that are just slightly rolled, and that's the only modifications that's been done. I have the Volk flat center cap, and then the Volk the EVS tuning titanium lug. The other issue that we have with the car, so the only tweak I have left to do other than maybe getting new rotors after I beat these up a little bit, is the TPMS. So I did OE, TPMS sensors, and the car hasn't picked it up, so I have a TPMS light on. So I'm not sure what to do about that. Maybe they have to be programmed by the dealer or something like that. I don't think the TPMS sensors are very sophisticated. I mean, this car was designed in 1998, 1997, so I don't think we have really all that much sophistication here for this. The wheels are coated in Kamikaze stance, which is great, and then I just put a coat of Polish Angel Super Sport PTFE on top of that, so they look fantastic. The color is diamond black. I really wanted bronze, but again, you can't just order these suckers. You have to get whatever they got. And it takes months and months and months to get them. So they had a set of diamond black that came in, and I just ordered them, and that's what I got. Someday I may do bronze. I really don't want to mess with Volks. I don't want to mess with the integrity of the forged aluminum by repowder coating them. I don't want to paint them, so they're going to stay diamond black. We'll see. Maybe when I need to get a new set of tires, I'll sell them. I chose Sport Cup 2s. I don't really want to hear all this crap about getting them up to operating temperatures. Just drive around. They're fine. They're not super great in the rain, but I mean, I have my GT3 in the mountains in the rain, driving around. You know, you slide a little bit on the pavement, but these tires are amazing. I like them because they're super quiet. They're super grippy. I don't find any issues getting them up to operating temp or not. I guess it could be an issue if you were in colder climates, but here, I mean, we don't generally get below 40 degrees, so they heat up in 2 minutes. So I haven't had any issues with them all. I think they're fantastic. I think they look great. I love having this little bit of meat here. I think it's awesome. So the rear end of the car, the rear wheels are the exact same offset and size as the front. The only thing I really did here, again, Ohlin's DFV coilovers. Again, I have about a 1/2 finger gap. We've rolled and relocated the fender tabs. Again, I probably didn't need to do all the hacking that I did. I do have a little crease, a little dent here that I need to get taken out. So I'm going to have a dent guy come up here in the next week or so, because I need to get a dent taken out of the Raptor for when I took it off-road and hit a little tree, hit a little sapling with it. But offset's the same. The rear, I really wanted adjustable tow arms, but I couldn't get it. No one had them. T1R, I forget what other companies, Hard Brace, no one had them in stock, and so it's just too late. I couldn't get them in time. It was a months and months to get them ordered. I guess I'm the only idiot who wanted adjustable tow arms. But the rear, again, we have the rear roll center adjusters, and that's really the only upgrade we have in the rear end. Factory sway bar. Again, we have spoon rigid collars on the rear section of the subframe. The brakes, yeah, my darn, I guess I didn't prepare the brakes well enough, because the black paint is already coming off. I think they heated up too much, and it kind of melted it off. But I painted the factory calipers. You don't really have an option. I mean, Willwood makes some system where you can have the e-brake connect, but the spring-loaded e-brake connectivity in the car becomes a real pain in the butt to modify, and so I ended up just leaving the factory rear. The rear brakes really aren't bad from the factory anyway, so all I did was upgrade the rotors to Stoptech slotted. And then did stainless lines, and then Stoptech street pads back here. So that's what I have on the rear setup. And then the nice thing about being square is I'll be able to rotate front to back. I have -3 3 degrees of camber in the back, and a little bit, I think I have 2/10 total toe. The other thing that made a real difference, where I made a huge mistake in the first alignment, is I went with a really aggressive caster in the front. I think we went to 7 1/4, which gives you lots of razor sharpness in steering, but then the steering was so heavy and the steering was so small, and I have to walk the wheel because my knees are in the way, and so I went back to a factory caster. So I would recommend, especially if you're doing 255s in the front, even stock, I'd recommend sticking with somewhere around 6 1/4, maybe 6.5 degrees in caster. That'll keep your steering. Somebody made a suggestion to me on that. That made a huge difference. The steering's still really heavy because the steering rack is different in this car. It's 13.8 to 1 instead of 14.9 to 1 like a stock S2000. The CR has a different steering calibration. And then it also has a power steering brace in there, and so that makes the steering very heavy if you're not careful with caster. So that's what we did in the rear end. So let's talk about the supercharger. Man, boy am I glad I didn't attempt to do this myself. This sits very close, and I think I need to do a little bit of adjustment because my filter is now touching the hood prop. But this is a Rotors front mount blower from Kraftwerks, slightly modified. In the way that the tubes turn, that's modified by LHT, but this is kind of a real pain in the butt to install. So I would highly recommend that you pay someone to do it that's done it before. In fact, I would highly recommend just ship it down to Tampa and have the guys at LHT do it, like a lot of people are doing. But I have a LHT battery holder. And then we have the Kraftwerks kit. The car dynoed to 404 wheel horsepower. I forget what the torque number is. I meant to look it up. I think it was 260 foot-pounds of torque at the wheels. Upgraded fuel injectors. Front mount, massive intercooler, really oversized intercooler, and so the Kraftwerks kit is very OEM-like. The big difference between this kit and the stock kit is it has a 30mm pulley, which is super whiny, but it sounds really cool. And then I probably should have followed and done a different exhaust, but I really had my heart set on a Toda setup. So you can see the Toda Header in there. I really wanted a Toda Header. You probably should do a Skunk 2, which is designed specifically for the supercharger. But again, the car is 405 wheel horsepower. Getting 415 or 420 wheel horsepower, it didn't really matter to me. I didn't really care all that much about it. And so I have the Toda Header, Toda test pipes, the Toda Header collector. The exit of the header is 60mm, goes to the 60mm test pipe, which then connects which then converts or transitions to 70mm. So the test pipe goes 70mm out to the 70mm exhaust, and then the exhaust then converts to 60mm at the tips. Now, of course, the big mistake I had is that with the exhaust, which was really frustrating, which we've since gotten figured out, is that the Toda exhaust in Japan, so I ordered this direct from Japan, which I ordered a lot of the parts from because I couldn't get anybody in the US to get it. King sent me to Toda USA, and Toda USA wouldn't return my calls or emails or anything. And so I ended up ordering from Japan direct. And so what I didn't realize or failed to specify, I guess, is the AP2 tunnel, the 06 and up tunnel, the exhaust tunnel is different. So we ended up having to completely cut and custom modify the Toda exhaust for this car. So the other disadvantage to it is it drones quite a bit. I've gotten over it, especially after doing the stereo in the car, so that's made a significant difference. I'm going to keep it because it looks fantastic and it sounds pretty incredible from the outside. Inside it sounds good too, but you get that combination of supercharger whine and exhaust. So that's the exhaust setup. It looks beautiful under the car. Looks great outside the car. You get the sort of that burnt titanium look on the tips that matches my lugs. But I'm semi pleased with it. It was more of a JDM dream than anything. But the exhaust does look cool. So there we go. All right, so the other thing I'm missing on the suspension that I failed to mention was I have a Whiteline front lower frame brace, and then I have the Cusco complete subframe bar. None of the other braces really fit or made any sense because I couldn't do the front strut tower brace. There's a factory brace inside, both a lower strut tower brace and an upper frame brace as well, so there really isn't any reason to change those. You can't see them anyway. But those are the other two modifications of the outside. So let's talk about interior, and we'll wrap this up. All right, so interior, notice, and I do have a little bit of headroom here. I have a backyard special low seat rail. And so that makes a significant difference in the height of the seat. There are also two little hooks on the back here that we remove. Right, so there are two little hooks so that I can recline the seat all the way back to give me some room. But notice, even still, there's a little bit of room between my knees, depending on what I'm doing and where my foot is on the brake. So I'm generally going to walk the wheel. The only modification here to the seat was the seat rail, and then again removing those two little parts. Main upgrade to the interior was I believe the necessity to do an aftermarket audio system. And the reason why I wanted that is, the car is super rickety, it's super squeaky. I mean, it is, and then it's modified and stiffer and all that comes with that. And so I really wanted to make sure that I could at least somewhat enjoy the experience in here. I know it's not the greatest audio environment, but doing an audio upgrade was a must for me. And so what I did is a Pioneer DEH 80, I just read off the spec in the beginning of the video. We'll just call it a DEH 80, which is the reason why I chose that head unit, even though I had to modify the door here, was because it allowed me to not have a full EQ, right? And so the EQ is in the head unit rather than having to have a separate EQ. So in the doors, I have 6.5. So I have JL Audio CS650s, soft dome tweeter, which goes in the normal door location. So 6. Tweet, and then I have a JL stealth box in the rear, which is a single W3 10-inch woofer, and then I've got an HD 900/5, which is their 5-channel amp. And so what I chose to do was to completely get rid of the JL crossovers, which I don't think I'll do again. I think there's a disadvantage to going active unless you're just a really gifted tuner. It's kind of hard to beat JL and their ability to have the crossover setups, as best possible for their speakers. And so I have the woofers powered in channel 2 and 3. Channels 1 and 2 are the tweeters. Actually, it's opposite. 3 and 4 are the tweeters. 1 and 2 are the woofers, and then 5 and 6 are bridged down to a single channel to make it a 5-channel amplifier in the subwoofer. And then I'm doing all time aligning, all EQ, rolling off my crossovers. I generally choose a 12 decibel slope, and so we're rolling off the crossover. So the woofers crossed over at 80 dB. 80 hertz. Then my door speakers will play from 80 up, and then I forget we have it crossed over. I think I have it crossed over at 500 hertz. Yeah, maybe 1,000 hertz. I think I have 1,000 hertz crossed over. So then I have a high pass filter set up on the tweeters, so that we have the remaining frequency set up. It's kind of tough because the tweeter's so close to you on this door, but it is time aligned, so at least I get some center image. Other thing in here is I have Escort Passport Max on a blend mount that's hardwired down to the fuse box down here in the kick, and so then we have a completely set up. The ambient tweeters in the rear here are completely disconnected. They're really not necessary. That's something the Honda did. I think they added that in 2004 to help, again, with some of the road noise. Brings the soundstage up a little bit, sort of distracts you. I think they only played, I think they were 2,000 hertz and up or something. No, I think they were even higher than that. I forget what the audible frequency of the tweeters that are back here in the headrest and the roll bar, or the pseudo roll bar, looked like, or what they played. But anyway, I had to drill out or Dremel out the door so that it closes. I'll show you that in a second. And then we have a completed audio system in the S2000. I think you guys are gonna crap your pants, but I think it's like $4,500 or something like that. So you know, you got to pay to play, I guess. Between install and all the products, I'll show you the amp rack here in a second. Last thing in here, the last modification, is I have 3M crystalline, which I really don't like. So I have 70% on the windshield. The clarity's great. It's just it looks funky from the outside. We have 40% because the 20% really doesn't work at all. It looks super purple. So 70% on the windshield, 40% on the rest. So the only real modification I need to do to here is I need to get some felt tape to help this from squeaking, and then do a little bit of weather seal on here so that it doesn't leak air, and we're good to go. So let me show you what the head unit looks like and the amplifier. All right, so here's our Pioneer head unit. I did modify the door a little bit so that it will close, simply because the volume control knob gets in the way. And then there's our blend mount mounted to our mirror. I did need to do some adjusting of the mirror to get it from flopping around, so I torqued that down, and then of course my E-Pass in the window there as well. So there's our blend mount setup. And then here's our amplifier. They built, Calicar Audio built me a little amp rack, 900/5 in the back trunk area. And then our subwoofer is right here. You can see, reach in here, show you what there's the jail stealth box. Clean little setup, and then obviously that is not open. I've got a cover right there. All right, so there you go. We've got a completed S2000. Have a few little minor adjustments and we're good. And so I'm gonna go start driving the thing quite a bit. I'll probably take it up to the mountains. I don't know about soon, but at some point I'll take it up there, and then we'll see if it stays here in my garage or not. I don't know. I'm not gonna rush it. We'll see how much tax I owe this year on Obsessed Garage and whether this pays for the taxes or not. We'll see. So anyway, I like how the car turned out. I'm a little underwhelmed with how the car's super analog, but I'm still, the jury's out of whether I really love getting in it and driving it. You know, that's the part that I'm a little unsure of. Is that, like, you know, it's uncomfortable, it's loud, it's small, it's tight. And so do I love that or not? I'm sort of unsure. I think it's pretty certain I don't love it. But do I like it enough to have the money invested in the thing? So I want to say, I haven't added it all up, but just to give you an idea, you're probably $70,000 into building a car like this. So, you know, the CR, just the car alone was $40,000. That's what I paid for it, $40,000 even. You're gonna pay the tax. And there's another $2,400, registration at $250. The superchargers, like, installed somewhere around $6,500. The exhaust is another $4,000. Suspension's $2,000 plus all the other parts, so another $2,000. So $4,000 for the suspension. The wheels are $3,100. Brakes are another $2,500. The audio system, you know, in tint, I think that whole bill was $5,250, and so keep adding it up. It just keeps going and going, and then all the other little ancillary parts, the radar detector, the blend mount, some of the other suspension parts, the Eibach sway bar, the $300 lug nut. So it all adds up pretty substantially. So anyway, I'm going to be doing some driving impressions. I have a car lock and car ID to put on this thing so that I can keep an eye on it if it disappears. So I'll be sharing a little video on that process, learning about that system. So I'll be putting that on here soon in the next couple of weeks. But now I'm going to enjoy it, drive it, and we'll kind of see how it goes. Anyway, Thanks for watching, and that's my S2000 CR. If you haven't seen the video explaining about what club racer means, then you might want to check that one out too. It's on the channel. Thanks for watching. Because what happens when the force pulls you back, your foot naturally comes off the gas. You have to keep your foot to the floor, foot to the floor.